Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Siddharth Mukherjee from Ambedkar University, Lucknow. Today we are going to learn about a very important module, the title of which is Impact of Modernization on Ethnicity, from the paper Comparative Politics, the Politics of Advanced Industrial Societies. In the introductory part, I would first mention one of the basic assumptions, which is that modernization will weaken primordial ties. It is generally believed by scholars that in the wake of modernization, the ethnic and parochial culture identities would get weakened. But contrary to this assumption, we find that ethnic assertions were very common to countries like UK, Belgium, Spain, France, Russia, Canada, and United States. We also find that ethnicity was a very important source of political mobilization, and as a result of ethnicity, many ethnic parties emerged in Western countries. But this phenomena was something which was common to both developed and developing countries. I would now mention some of the basic objectives of this module. So students, what we are going to see in this module is that we are going to learn about three important aspects. The first is that the module involves analysis of ethnic mobilization, in the sense that how ethnicity has led to political mobilization in Western societies. The second important aspect that we are going to study of ethnicity is the emergence of ethnic parties. Ethnic parties are basically those parties which emerged to get the support of certain ethnic groups, and they totally dependent on the political support of those ethnic groups. The third important aspect is that ethnicity has become a very important source of conflicts in the wake of modernization. These conflicts are very common to some of the Western societies. Now students, let me tell you about the meaning and nature of ethnicity. And in order to understand the meaning, let me give you some important definitions of ethnicity. One of the very important definitions of ethnicity was given by a scholar called Clifford Geertz, a scholar who is well known in the field of sociology and political science. Clifford Geertz defined ethnicity or ethnic group as a community type group of people who share the same culture, or to descendants of such people who may not share this culture but who identify themselves with this identity group. So according to Clifford Geertz, it's the cultural commonality that brings people together in an ethnic group. So the basis of formation of ethnic group is a commonly shared culture and a commonly shared set of values. Another very important definition is given by a very well-known scholar of Indian politics, Kanchan Chandra. Kanchan Chandra, students, I would just like to mention, Kanchan Chandra is a very well-known scholar of caste politics in India. So I would recommend that the students must read Kanchan Chandra's works on caste politics. Now let me come to Kanchan Chandra's understanding of ethnicity. According to Kanchan Chandra, ethnicity has two important features. First, it comprises a social category like race, caste, dialect, etc. So, ethnic group is a group based on a certain social identity. So, ethnicity could be defined by in view of a certain visible social characteristic that a group possesses. The second important feature of ethnicity, as mentioned by Chandra, is that ethnicity is a subset of country's population, and they normally constitute the minority. So ethnicity basically refers to that ethnic group which is in minority in a particular nation. To move further on a discussion about the meaning and nature of ethnicity, let me give you another very elaborate and comprehensive definition of ethnicity or ethnic group given by a comparative politics scholar named J. Milton Yinger. According to Yinger, ethnicity or ethnic group is a segment of a larger society whose members are thought by themselves or others to have a common origin and to share important segments of a common culture and who, in addition, participate in shared activities in which common origin and culture are significant ingredients. So, let me explain this before I move on to the other part of the definition given by Yinger. Very simply, Yinger tries to define ethnicity in terms of a certain common culture or certain commonly shared values. I mean, this definition appears to be very similar to what is given by Clifford Geertz that we discussed earlier. So, both these scholars define ethnicity in terms of certain common values, practices, norms shared by a particular group. In the second part of the definition, Yinger says that ethnicity involves mixture of language, religion, race, ancestral homeland with its related culture as the defining element. But according to him, no one of these by itself demark an ethnic group. So an ethnic group is a group that can possess multiple identities. So they may be known by what in view of a certain language they speak, a certain religion they follow, and both language and religion may define their social identity. Let me continue discussing about the meaning and nature of ethnicity. And here let me talk about the definition of ethnicity as given by Horowitz in 1985. Horowitz defined ethnicity as a sense of collective belonging, which could be based on common descent, language, history, culture, race, or religion, or some combination of these. Again, this definition appears to be very similar to that which is given by Yinger and Clifford Geertz. So, all these definitions basically try to understand ethnicity or ethnic group as something that is based on common shared culture, value, practices, and so on and so forth. And there is a sense of common belongingness or collective belongingness to a community. Ethnic group also gets converted into nationhood or federalism when it is territorially concentrated. And here ethnicity takes the form of ethnic nationalism. What comparative politics scholars believe is that when ethnic groups are territorially concentrated within a nation, then they may start demanding for greater autonomy or in the extreme case may demand for a separate nation. Good examples of this are Quebecois in Canada, Basques in Spain, Sikhs in India, Kashmiris, Bengali Muslims, Eritreans, Filipino Muslims, Sri Lankan Tamils, and Acehnese. Students, now we are going to learn about a very important thing about modernization and ethnicity, which is that we are going to look at some of the very, very important theories or theoretical position on modernization and ethnicity. One of the most basic theories of modernization is the modernization theory itself. The main proponent of this theory is a very well-known scholar of comparative politics, Gabriel Armand. I think students, we all know about Gabriel Armand and his famous structural functional theory. In his structural functional theory, he gave a very, very important concept called secularization of culture in modern societies. The term secularization of culture meant that modernization would weaken primordial ties in modern societies. Similar to this argument, another scholar of modernization, Hechter, calls this phenomena as diffusion erasure. The concept of diffusion erasure implies that the salience of ethnicity should decrease as modernization diffuses over a culturally heterogeneous population. So modernization would impact multicultural societies in Western countries. And this is what has happened in most of the countries like United Kingdom, Belgium, Canada, US, and so on and so forth. Continuing with the theoretical position of Hechter, Hechter explains the resurgence of ethnic loyalties by advancing another very, very important model called the reactive ethnicity model, in which he views ethnic solidarity as a reaction to the exploitation of the culturally distinct periphery by the dominant center in modern societies. He believes that ethnic solidarity or ethnic mobilization is something that happened as a response to the exploitation of the culturally distinct periphery by the dominant cultural center. In other words, the majoritarian culture became dominant and the majoritarian cultural group started exploiting the resources in such societies, as a result of which the ethnic groups were being discriminated in all public spheres. And this is something which led to ethnic solidarity and ethnic mobilization in Western societies. Now moving on to some more very important theoretical positions, and these theoretical positions which I would mention is related with the modernization theory. The other important theory which was given by another very important comparative politics scholar called Hannon in 1979. Hannon gave the model of diffusion competition. The other important scholar who talked about modernization and ethnicity was Nilsson in 1980, and the third important scholar was Reagan, who again talked about the modernization's impact on ethnicity in the year 1979. All these scholars believed that modernization and market economy create something which is called as homogeneity, or a homogeneous political culture based on the universal criteria of logic and rationality. And this is something which led to undermining of ascriptive or ethnic identities. So, the spread of cultural homogeneity is something which led to undermining of ascriptive and parochial identities. Francois Nielsen was very critical of the two models and highlights that the significance of political process in triggering ethnic bonding was something which was very common to modern Western societies. This view appears to be very similar to instrumental perspective, which says that ethnic solidarity is required for gaining political power. So basically, Francois Nielsen emphasized on politicization of ethnicity, that ethnicity became a source of, number one, the emergence of ethnic parties, and also it became a very important source of political mobilization in Western societies. And this is what we call as politicization of ethnicity. Now moving on to another very important theoretical position, all cultural nationalism, and the two main proponents of this theoretical positions are Clifford Geertz and Conner. They believed that primordialism of ethnic groups is far more powerful than the pulls of civic ties imposed by modernization. So according to them, modernization is something which did not really lead to cultural homogeneity. Rather, ethnicity or ethnic mobilization became more common in modern societies. And this argument is something that goes contrary to the previous arguments which said that modernization would lead to something called as logic and rationality, the spread of logic and rationality in Western societies. Now, this particular theory believes that the process of national and state building are shaped by pre-modern alignments and ethnic ties. And this phenomena was something which is very common to European societies. This would mean that nation building and state building are not simply determined by modern values. Rather, nation building and state building in European societies are based on primordial ties or ethnic ties. The main advocates of this theoretical position are Anthony Smith, John Armstrong, and Adrian Hastings. Now, here we will discuss the modernity in capitalist society, or modernity and ethnicity in capitalist societies. How did ethnicity emerge in modern capitalist societies? The scholars have found that ethnicity or ethnic mobilization mainly emerged after the Second World War. Ethnic mobilization became a source or a basis of political cleavage, group conflict, and demand for territorial autonomy. In many cases, ethnic cleavage bypassed or surpassed other kinds of cleavages in these societies. For example, in many countries, ethnic cleavages undermined class cleavages, and therefore ethnicity became a major source of political mobilization than class cleavages. It also became a source of group conflict. This conflict mainly happened between the majority community and the ethnic community which was in minority. And finally, ethnicity became a very, very important source of demand for territorial autonomy. As the ethnic groups felt discriminated and exploited by the cultural majority, they started making strong claims, or their political organizations and political parties representing them started making strong claims for territorial autonomy. Students, I would give some examples of this, and through this I'll be able to illustrate this point in a better manner. Some of the examples of the demands for territorial autonomy are as follows: the Celtics in Britain, Quebecois in Canada, Basques in Spain, and Flemish in Belgium. All these groups constitute the ethnic minority in these countries, and as they have felt discriminated over centuries, they have made strong demands, or their organizations in these countries have made strong demands for greater political autonomy. Many Marxists believe that ethnic mobilization will dilute class struggle. And this is something related to what I just said, that ethnic cleavages have overtaken class cleavages in many Western societies. As a result of which, ethnic division or ethnic stratification has become a major source of division or stratification in Western societies than class divisions. Now, I would mention certain conditions for ethnic mobilization, and these conditions have mainly been identified by two very important scholars of comparative politics, Lipset and Rocken. According to Lipset and Rocken, following are the conditions for ethnic mobilization. So if ethnic mobilization has to happen, it must follow these conditions. The first condition is that there must be equal size of ethnic population residing within the geographical boundaries of the state. Second, the periphery in these states and nations must be relatively advanced. Third, the class cleavages must not overtake ethnic cleavages. In other words, ethnic cleavages must be the major source of political divisions in these societies than class cleavages. Also, if ethnic mobilization or ethnic solidarity has to take place, then the country must have a strong, or the nation must have a strong history of peripheral regional government. And lastly, a strong nationalism of a dominant core ethnic group is a must for ethnic mobilization and ethnic solidarity. Let me give you another important model that explains ethnicity or ethnic mobilization in Western societies. And these models are basically referred to as economic models because they associate ethnicity with economic changes in the society, or ethnic assertions with the economic dynamics of modern societies. The first model amongst this, or the first theory amongst this, is the split labor market theory, which states that ethnic conflicts peaks when two or more ethnic groups competing within the same labor market command different wages. So basically, ethnic conflict happens mainly when ethnic groups compete over benefits from the market. So whether it's about wages or whether it's about getting access to the benefits of the market, there is a consistent competition between ethnic groups, and as a result of which the ethnic groups are able to establish themselves. The next important model or theory is the segregated labor market theory, which states that economic institutions and network relation played a significant role in maintaining ethnic solidarity. It has been found that the modern economic institutions, which are strongly integrated, promote networking among ethnic groups, and which becomes a very important source of ethnic solidarity in modern societies. So these are two very important, significant theories to explain how ethnic solidarity or ethnic assertion or ethnicity can be linked or conceptually linked with changes in a market-oriented society, or how a market-oriented society leads to networking in ethnic groups. Students, now I would mention about the types of ethnic mobilization. The first type of political mobilization is seen in underdeveloped regions of multinational states like Wales, Scotland, Flanders, Quebec, and Basques. The second type of political mobilization has been found in United States, mobilization that has been led by certain economically disadvantaged ethnic groups like blacks or Hispanics. And in order to understand these two concepts, I would refer to certain important definitions. The first definition of ethnic nationalism is given by Paul W. Zargowski. According to Zargowski, ethnic nationalism is a form of nationalism that seeks to mobilize a minority community based in an identified territory within an existing state. Its aim is to gain full statehood for that group. So ethnic nationalism takes place when the ethnic minority makes strong claims for a separate state. Examples of ethnic nationalisms are Basques in Spain, the Chechens and the related groups in Russia, Catholic Irish in the British province of Northern Ireland, and Croatians of France. The next understanding of ethnic mobilization or ethnic nationalism is also being explained by Ashutosh Varshney. Ashutosh Varshney mentions two types of ethnic nationalism. The first is the nationalism of exclusion, where the dominant cultural group excludes ethnic minorities from power politics and nationalism. And the second nationalism is called as the nationalism of resistance, where discriminated groups resist such moves and demands for cultural protection. So whereas the first type of nationalism is the nationalism of the dominant cultural groups and which tries to exclude the ethnic minorities from politics, economy, and other public spheres. And the other nationalism is that of the nationalism of the ethnic minorities, which tries to challenge the dominance of cultural majority, and because they feel isolated or excluded, they make demands for autonomy or in the extreme case, separate statehood. Coming to the next aspect of ethnicity is the role of ethnic parties or the formation of ethnic parties. Formation of ethnic parties is a very common phenomena in Western societies. It mainly results from the politicization of ethnic divisions. Karl Deutsch, Ernest Gellner, and Benedict Anderson believe that ethnic mobilization and ethnic parties are a characteristic feature of modern economies. So, ethnic parties mainly try to mobilize ethnic group on the basis of commonly shared culture, practices, values, etc. It's very clear that ethnic parties have their target groups for electoral support. So ethnic parties totally depend on the support of the groups during their own group during election. They do not intend to get secure votes from other groups and mainly depend on the support of their own community. So what kind of appeals do they make to their community during election? The appeals that are commonly made before the ethnic groups are devolution of power and autonomy. So these ethnic parties mainly assure people that if they come into power or if they gain certain number of seats in the parliament, then they would be able to get greater autonomy for their region. Secondly, they promise people to preserve their cultural rights, which they find that is being violated because of the dominance of the cultural majority. The ethnic parties also make promises of economic incentives to their ethnic groups because they believe that there is a clear-cut discrimination against the ethnic groups in the economic sphere. So one of the major demands or one of the major issues that they raise in their manifesto is about giving certain economic incentives and benefits, or special economic incentives and benefits to their ethnic groups. Now let me elaborate a little bit more about ethnic parties. It has been found that in most societies of West Europe, ethnic cleavages have overtaken class cleavages. Initially, class was a major source of political division in such societies, whereas now it's ethnicity which has become a major source of political mobilization in such societies. So we find that ethnic cleavages have gained salience over class politics after the Second World War in many West European countries. The support for ethnic parties has two explanations. The first is the support to get material benefits, and the second is the support to get dignity. Those states where the ethnic groups do not make extreme demands for autonomy or separate statehood confine their demands to getting special benefits, especially economic incentives, and to get dignity and self-respect, which is denied to them because of discrimination being felt in every sphere of public life. Now coming to the next aspect of ethnicity is ethnic conflicts in modern times. Students, as we know that ethnic conflicts is a characteristic features of many societies in contemporary world, and this form of conflict is common to both developed and developing countries. Ethnic mobilization is found to be a very important source of collective violence. So ethnicity or ethnic mobilization involves violence, where the members of an ethnic group come together, and if they feel that their demands have not been met by the government, then they may use violent measures to press for their demand. And the history of the world has witnessed many ethnic conflicts in many parts of the world. Ethnic mobilization or ethnic conflicts have found expression in democracies, but they are grossly suppressed in authoritarian systems. So because there is a system of free expression, free speech, free movement, therefore ethnic groups have greater opportunities to mobilize in democracies as compared to authoritarian system. It has been observed that almost one half of the world has witnessed ethnic conflicts after the Second World War. So one half of the world witnessing ethnic conflict is a substantial number, and this includes many developed and developing countries. Now let me mention some forms of ethnic violence as given by another very important scholars of Indian politics and comparative politics, Ashutosh Varshney. Now, according to Ashutosh Varshney, there are primarily three forms of ethnic violence that have been witnessed in different societies. The first is riots, where the state neutrality is completely abandoned. So the state doesn't remain neutral when riots happen. The second is pogroms. In pogroms, the state neutrality is again abandoned, and the state clearly supports the cultural majority. The third type or form of ethnic violence is civil war. This is an extreme form of ethnic violence where the state is involved in armed rebellion against the warring ethnic group. One of the very good examples of this is the ethnic violence in Sri Lanka. The war or the conflict between the Sri Lankan Sinhalese, who are in majority, with the Tamil minority is something that has been continuing even till today. So students, finally let us summarize the points that we have just discussed about the relationship between ethnicity and modernization. I would try to summarize the entire discussion in three important points. The first point that I would like to mention is that comparative studies on ethnicity helps us explain two very, very important things. The first is the nature and forms of mobilization strategies. Different countries have adopted different forms of mobilization strategies, and the difference in mobilization strategies in different countries is based upon the nature of ethnicity or ethnic groups in different societies. As a result of this, we also find that ethnic parties have adopted different forms of mobilization in developed and developing societies. The second important point is that in comparative politics, the relationship between ethnicity and modernization helps us understand from a comparative perspective the emerging political demands of ethnic groups in Western societies and the state responses like new visa policies and so on. Students, we know that in countries like UK and France, there is a lot of pressure of ethnic minorities, particularly from Asian countries, on the government. These groups have been demanding for certain rights that they have been denied for centuries. So the government in these countries is under tremendous pressure to grant certain rights to these ethnic minorities. A good example of this is banning of burqas in France. There was a lot of reaction from the Muslim community in France against the law of banning burqas in France. The third important point and the last point that I would like to mention to you is that ethnic groups have found new grounds of solidarity in modern age with the purpose of gaining equal access to the resources of the modern market. This particular point is very well explained by the diffusion competitive model that I had mentioned earlier. So basically, there's a competition between ethnic groups to have access to the resources in the modern market. As we know that the ethnic groups have also been denied access to benefits in the modern market, so they have been claiming for these benefits, as a result of which they have found a new ground of solidarity amongst themselves. Thank you.